You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right, everybody, welcome to this episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. Happy to be here. As always, this is Daniel Barrett. This week, we are talking about some really cool stuff. We're talking about massive marketing growth through leveraging this idea of synergy and of using multiple channels. So something we've been experimenting with a lot in the last couple of years. It's been really, really great, getting really good results from it. So super happy to dig into it. As always, I'm going to have the show notes over at adwordsnerds.com/podcast. That's adwordsnerds.com/podcast. So you can go over there, get the show notes for this episode, and you need to write anything down. Let's get into it. When I first started my own business, I first started getting into business and marketing and all this stuff, I did not have a business background. I didn't have any kind of business education. I was really teaching myself everything that I need to know. And I was reading every book that I could get my hands on, right? I started with the 4-Hour Workweek, like I think a lot of people did, by Tim Ferriss, and really started tearing through the business section of my local Barnes & Noble, which is... I don't know how many kids today are like, I need to go down to the Barnes & Noble and learn about business. I think they mostly are going on the YouTubes or whatever they're doing. But at the time I was going down to Barnes & Noble and just literally sitting in the business section and reading the business books. And I picked up this book by this guy, Jay Abraham. And this book was called Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got. It is still, I think to this day, my favorite business book of all time. If you have not read it, you have to read this book. It is amazing. But the one idea that I got out of this book that really stuck with me more than anything else, I think, and really made a huge difference on how I ran my business, how we do our marketing for clients and everything, it's this idea of the Parthenon, which is what Jay calls this, the Parthenon. And it's this idea that every business needs to have multiple marketing channels going all the time. And to break down why this is, Jay is going to ask you to imagine a diving board. Okay, so picture like you've got this long, kind of thin thing, which is the board where you stand and you dive off of, right? And then you've got the base. The base is all the way at one end. And so it's got this one piece of support. And imagine that the diving board, the board itself, that's your revenue. And that base, the place where the diving board is, anchored to the edge of the pool there, that's your marketing channel. You've got one big marketing channel that's supporting the entire revenue board there, okay? Now you think about what happens on a diving board. Well, when you go on a diving board, you go up and down, right? Because there's only one point of support. So if you go to the far end of the diving board, you go up and down really, really rapidly. And the same thing happens in business. If you've got a single point of support for your revenue, which is your marketing channel, you've got one marketing channel you rely on to bring in your leads, you're supporting this long board of revenue. That revenue is going to go up and down based on what that marketing channel is doing, right? As the marketing channel shifts, so goes your profits. Now, instead of the diving board, which is kind of how most businesses are set up, we want to picture the Parthenon. And if you're not familiar with the Parthenon, you have seen it. I pretty much promise you. It's an old Greek building. Imagine like your stereotypical, ancient Greek building, white, and you got all the columns, right? Now, in the Parthenon, the roof is your revenue. Okay, so the roof is your revenue, and it's supported by multiple columns. You maybe got 6 columns, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. Now, does that roof move up and down like the diving board? Absolutely not, right? And in fact, the real Parthenon's still standing, however many years later. It's a very stable structure having these multiple support columns. And likewise in business, You want to have multiple marketing channels supporting your revenue. Those multiple points of support, those multiple ways of generating leads, multiple ways of driving new business for investors, is going to be multiple ways of finding motivated sellers. That's going to create a stronger support system for your revenue overall, and it's going to reduce the ups and downs of your business a whole lot. Really what the Parthenon is all about is, yes, it helps you grow because you got multiple marketing channels bringing you more leads. You're definitely going to get higher volume this way. But really what it provides is stability. It provides support. It reduces the ups and downs. This is absolutely massive if you want to generate a predictable source of revenue rather than going up and down with the day of the week, the time of the month, whatever it is, right? The seasons, anything you can think of. So that's the Parthenon idea, and Jay Abraham talks about in this book. Really, really blew my mind because I was like, oh, wow, like not only do I need multiple channels of marketing, but my clients need that too. So let's bring that into the real estate investing space, okay? How do we, as people that are generating motivated seller leads, working with investors, how do we incorporate this idea into what we're doing? Well, let's look at what is classically happening for most investors right now. If you ask yourself, like, where do most real estate investors start when they're just getting started? If you're wholesaling or you're trying to get into flipping, whatever it is, where do people start for generating leads? Some people are going to walk door to door. A lot of people are driving for dollars. Most investors are going to do direct mail. And if you ask yourself why that is, it's because direct mail is a good mix between scalable, meaning you can send out a lot of them, right? But low barrier to entry. There's not a ton of cost. There's certainly cost involved, but the cost is relatively low. So there's just a lower barrier to entry. Most people understand mail. You don't have to be tech savvy to do it. There's a lot of companies that help you do it, etc. So it's a really good marketing channel in terms of scalability, but there's a low barrier entry. That means that most investors can get into it. And if you are expecting me to knock direct mail in this podcast, I'm not going to do that. I know, like, I am the online marketing guy for investors, and that's how people know me. But look, direct mail is awesome, right? I do not look down on direct mail at all. It is really, really good in a lot of markets. And direct mail has some really significant benefits, namely, you have the ability to really drill down into your targeted lists and develop very highly targeted campaigns, based on the amount of equity or, all sorts of things. It's really hard to do online in a lot of scenarios, and that is a thing of beauty. So like a really well executed direct mail campaign is really awesome. And I'm never going to say you should not be doing direct mail. I think direct mail is still really good, but there are some drawbacks to direct mail, and especially drawbacks to having direct mail be your only source of leads, right? And to get to why that is, we want to talk about disruption and what to do when you are in a period of marketing channel disruption. I think a lot of people think of disruption as something that happens online. So like, I'm doing all these MySpace ads and Facebook came along and kicked MySpace in the face. And now Facebook is the king of the castle and all my ads don't go anywhere, right? And we think about online companies as disrupting each other, and, Google's disrupting Ask Jeeves or whatever it's disrupting, right? So we expect kind of the online space to be chaotic and a lot of change. But this actually happens a lot in direct mail markets, or really just in housing markets in general. I'm going to give you an example. I'm pretty sure if you are listening to this podcast, you have experienced some variation of this, or you've heard someone tell you this story. This should sound pretty familiar, but you got somebody who's an investor in their local market, and they've been doing direct mail. They've been in it for years. They're doing really well. And then, a coaching program or a guru or a seminar that trains people in investing swings into town. They do a ton of marketing. They get a ton of interest. People flood into that. And all of a sudden, this seminar they are training a bunch of new people to be your competitors. Right? They're going to give them some basic understanding, give them some basic tools so you can get them really pumped up. And then the seminar or the guru or the program, they're going to leave. They're going to go to the next market. Well, what happens in your market after that is done, right? Well, a lot of times you're going to have sometimes hundreds of new investors all doing pretty much the exact same marketing. Sometimes using the exact same templated letter or postcard. Because in the seminar, they're going to say like, hey, this is what worked for us. They're going to teach everybody how to do that exact same thing. And the new people don't really have the experience yet to innovate or to invent their own thing. They're just going to do the thing that the people told them to do. So in this case, they're going to send out the same yellow letter. They're going to send out the same postcard. Most of the time, they're hitting the same lists, right? So all of a sudden, that's a much, much noisier channel. You may have gone to like one or two other investor postcards being in a motivated seller's mailbox to literally like 5 to 10 to 20 other of like the exact same thing in every single mailbox you mail to. This is probably, it may sound like I'm kind of exaggerating this, but I will say this is probably the most common story I hear when people get on the phone and they want to talk to me. This is the story I hear all the time. I was doing direct mail in my market. It was working really well, but I've been seeing response rates drop off. There's way more competition. People are making crazy offers. There's all these newbies in the market. I mean, this is the story I hear, I would say 8 times out of 10, some variation on this. So this is what we talk about, right? When we're talking about disruption, a market disruption can happen in any marketing channel. Right? Doesn't matter if that marketing channel has worked for decades. Disruption can happen and it can be very intense. If you are completely invested in a single marketing channel and you don't have this Parthenon setup where you have multiple channels to support you, it can be really intense. It can be really disruptive. It can be painful, right? Now, again, I am not knocking direct mail because I think pretty much every single investor should be at the very least testing direct mail in their market, right? Or have direct mail be a part of their setup. But it shouldn't be the only tool in your bag. Just like if you were only doing online marketing, I would tell you, hey, like add in some direct mail, right? If you're only doing direct mail, I'm going to tell you to add in some online marketing or billboards or I don't know, like build yourself a house costume and walk around down the street, right? Whatever. Maybe don't do that. You can wear one of those like sandwich boards, that you always see like people wearing in like the Depression that say like, like hamburgers, 2 cents or whatever, something like that, right? So it's not about any one tool. It's about having multiple tools in the tool bag in order to give you the highest level of security in case of a market disruption.
Are you an investor who wants to dominate your local market? Do you want more leads and deals online? Then download your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint, absolutely free at www.adwordsnerds.com/gift. What are you waiting for? Go to www.adwordsnerds.com/gift right now to get your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint.
The thing I want to get across is while that's important, it's actually not the only reason to have a Parthenon type strategy where you have multiple marketing channels. The stability is huge. And that's what I've focused on because I really think this is insurance against some really potentially painful disruptions in your market, right? This is the thing we always try to cap our downside. We always try to look out for the worst possible scenario and make sure that we are protected, right? You do this with your life insurance, with your health insurance. You do this with your business insurance, right? But stability is not the only thing we unlock when we use multiple marketing strategies. What we get is synergy. And the way I'm using the word synergy here is I'm using it to mean when you get a bigger effect from combining 2 separate channels than you would have gotten from running those things simultaneously but separately. These marketing channels, when you use them together, a lot of times they don't just, add up to 1 + 1 = 2. They add up to 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 because you're able to allow them and to use them to expand and multiply each other, right? And this can sound very abstract. It's kind of a little philosophical almost. So I want to break this down into very specific instances of how you can do this now and how this is working like with our clients when we work with investors or, other investors that I'm talking to every week, people who are using this really successfully. And specifically, I'm going to focus on combining direct mail and online sources. But you could get something like this with pretty much any marketing channels that you combine, right? But let's focus in on direct mail and online. Let's say we've got someone who is doing a combination of direct mail, they're doing organic marketing online, so they're doing search engine optimization, they're trying to rank their website really well in Google, that kind of thing. And they're also doing paid ads, right? In this case, they're doing retargeting ads, which is just a fancy way of saying they're showing ads to people who have been on their website. Okay. This is actually a real world example, something we've seen with a real client. So let's say this client sends out direct mail. They're hitting their regular list of potential motivated sellers, sending out postcards, right? Now, one of those people is going to get that postcard and think like, I don't really know what this is. I don't know what's going on. So they Google the company name and scam. Right. So this is a real, actually much more common than you might think it would be. So let's say, Barrett Home Buyers is the name of the investor company. So this person's going online, they're typing in Barrett Home Buyers scam. Why are they doing that? Because they want to know if you're a scam. Right. I mean, I think, if you're an investor, you've done this any amount of time, the people who aren't familiar with investing and where investing fits into the kind of the marketplace, they get confused and they want to know if it's legit. Right. So they type in Barrett Home Buyers scam. Now, that person sees an organic search result. So this is a web page that this client made that showed up in Google for free, targeting this keyword. So Barrett Home Buyer scam. In this instance, would be like, I made this page, this Barrett Home Buyer scam page. And they click on that page to see what it's all about. And on that page, I've created an article that breaks down like, hey, some investors are scams and some aren't. Here's what you need to look for in an ethical investor. Right. And by the way, if you want to talk to someone to break this down, you can go ahead and contact Barrett Home Buyers, right? Not pretending to be someone else. I'm not pretending that I'm not this company, just breaking it down in a really objective way. So this person, they got the postcard in the mail. They typed in Barrett Home Buyers scam. They landed on our page that targeted that keyword. They read it. They spent some time there, but they didn't fill out the form. They just left. Okay. Now I have it set up so that I can show ads to anyone that's been on any page of my site. So when that person then goes on Facebook later in that day, they're sharing memes and clicking on baby photos or whatever it is, they actually see an ad from Barrett Home Buyers with a little video, right? And an invitation to fill out a form and get a free offer on their house. So then they go ahead and fill that out. I get the lead notification, then I contact them on the phone. Right? So in this instance, what would have happened if I was only using direct mail is I send out the direct mail, they type in Barrett Home Buyers scam, maybe they find something, maybe they don't, maybe they land on the Better Business Bureau. That's it, right? That's really it. The likelihood of me pulling in that person is fairly low. In this instance, because I'm using multiple channels where they get the postcard, they type in Barrett Home Buyers scam, they land on my organic marketing page, then they bounce off that, then they land on my paid ad, and then they fill out the form, it's allowing me to get a much higher yield out of the direct mail money I'm already spending, and for a very low marginal cost. Right? So the effect of the online stuff is that it's expanding the effectiveness of the direct mail stuff that I'm doing. And this is really, really powerful. If you extend that out over time and say like, hey, every postcard I'm sending out gets this benefit. We're doing this every time I send out any piece of mail for years and years and years. Well, the utility of that is absolutely huge. And the effect on your bottom line is going to be absolutely huge. Right? Let me give you another example of combining online marketing channels specifically. So let's say you are running AdWords ads. You're running ads in Google. When someone types in, sell my house fast, they see your ad. Now, one of the secondary effects of that is that you can get inside your AdWords account very accurate local keyword data. And this is very hard to find. There are free keyword tools out there where you can do research on who's searching for what in your local market, but they are very inaccurate when you try to drill down to the local level. I mean, really just kind of unusable, in my opinion, right? And the only way you can really get hard numbers is by running ads. So when you run ads, you get this really accurate keyword data. Now you can look at those keywords and say like, all right, you know what? Based on this, I'm going to change my organic strategy, my search engine optimization strategy, because based on this paid data that I generated, I can see that most people are searching for really only 2 or 3 keywords. So I'm going to change my strategy to focus entirely on creating content around those 2 or 3 keywords, right? So now, let's say you're working on that, a couple months go by, you're doing all the work for your SEO, you're still running your ads. Now when someone types in, let's just say sell my house fast, I'm just going to assume that's the keyword we're talking about. Someone types in sell my house fast, right? They still see your ad is still running, but now you also have an organic page, a free page that ranks for that keyword as well. So you're running an ad and you have an organic page. Now what most people don't realize is that when that happens, your organic page, right? So the page you are not paying for actually gets 15% higher number of clicks. So when you run your ads and your organic page together, you actually end up getting a higher percentage of clicks on the organic page and on the ad. So this is a really good example of this synergistic effect, right? You use the data from your ads to drive a more focused SEO strategy, which made your SEO more effective. And then because you did those two things together, you got a higher percentage of clicks on your ads and on your organics, right? So this is really powerful. Once you start to do this, you start to see these little opportunities for connection pretty much everywhere that you look, where you understand, hey, by doing this together and making sure that I'm swapping data back and forth and best practices and all that stuff, I'm starting to get a bigger effect, a ripple effect across all of my marketing channels. Right? Now, how do you get started with this? My personal recommendation is to do a combination of direct mail, search engine optimization, and pay-per-click. These, to me, are the ones that, they combine with each other in such a way that they address each other's weaknesses and they amplify their strengths. Right? Direct mail and PPC give you immediate lead flow that brings in some leads. It brings in some cash flow that's extremely important, right? Direct mail and PPC give you extremely high levels of targetability offline and online, respectively, right? SEO really gives you a massive potential volume over time. SEO tends to be slow to get started, but over time, it's going to have the biggest potential audience and the highest ROI. So while direct mail and PPC are kind of fast and short term, SEO is building out your long-term profitability. And they all give you objective data for testing, right? They give you enough data so you can test different landing pages, different postcards, different websites, different calls to action, different phone numbers, whatever it is, different logos, right? So these are really good channels to put together because they really magnify each other. And you don't have to do all 3. You could do 2 of the 3. I personally like doing all 3 at once because it's really powerful. But if you have a smaller budget, you do direct mail and SEO. If you got a bigger budget, maybe you do direct mail and PPC. Right? You can do some combination of those, get all the effects of having a Parthenon that you can keep building on, and get the synergistic effects that are going to drive higher response rates across all of your marketing. And again, this is one of those habits where once you get into it, the cumulative effects over time are absolutely massive. They are massive. This is the difference between really scaling up over time and an investor business that just kind of stays at a certain level, static level, and kind of stays there for a long period of time. And I'm telling you, it's not just about growth. It's not just about making more money. I mean, that's awesome. It's really about stability and security, because the more you depend on only one channel, the more you put your eggs in only one basket, the more risk you take on. And for a lot of us, myself included, this business is not just about me. It's what I use to feed my family. It's what I use to support my employees. And if you're anything like me, you take that responsibility incredibly seriously, right? So this is the kind of thing that really has incredible downstream effects. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this was useful for you guys. Like I said, you can go on adwordsnerds.com/podcast to go ahead and grab the show notes. And as always, I want you guys to join me in our Facebook group. The REI Marketing Nerds Facebook group is totally free. It'll be free forever. You can get there by going to adwordsnerds.com/group or just go on Facebook and type in REI Marketing Nerds. I'm in there every single week doing live trainings. We do all sorts of free giveaways and cool stuff, plus other investors just sharing strategies, tips, tricks, and all sorts of cool stuff like that. I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Have an awesome rest of your day, and definitely go check out that Jay Abraham book if you haven't read it. It is a doozy. All right, guys and gals, talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.